In a book titled The Pivot Year by American author Brianna West, she writes, "We don't need a lot to be happy, but we do need things that are real. We do need things that grip our hearts and enliven us and make us feel like we are here for a reason. Here to experience something that could not only be touched by a human body, understood by a human mind, loved by a human heart. When we deny ourselves the authentic experience of being alive, we reach for more than what we really want is not to stretch wider, but to go deeper." Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing the Dream. I'm your host, Lily Mihailovich, also known as Lily Rain across social media platforms. Today, we're going to be talking about feeling lost in your 20s, and this is just a reminder that you're on the right path in life. Before we get into this episode, I just want to acknowledge that this is inspired by the publishing company Thought Catalog. They publish books such as The Pivot Year, which is the quote that I started off this episode with, and they take pictures of pages in the books and they post them on TikTok, like 5 signs you're on the right path in life, 5 signs you've grown more than you're giving yourself credit for, what you need to read this week based on your zodiac signs. They just pull excerpts from their books and they post them online, and these signs that you're on the right path were an excerpt from a book, but the points that I'm making pivoting off of that are personal experiences and anecdotes that I'm adding on in addition to it. This content isn't completely original, but it is inspired, and I just want to say that I am acknowledging that. So I guess for the first part of this podcast, I'm just going to ramble about being in my 20s and how much I've learned about myself. I think I've had a little bit of a different experience than most people my age, just because I am, 1, a transfer student, 2, I've worked a 40-hour work week before I even turned 20 years old. I've lived a lot of life compared to most people my age. Like right now I pay all my own bills, and it's a lot more common to move out at the age of 23, 25, maybe even later, or going back to your parents sometime in your 20s. That's just how it is. The economy is brutal. The society we live in is not the same society that our parents grew up in, and that's okay. But my 20s experience has been rocky, but fun also at the same time. I believe that moving to San Diego was the best thing that I could have done for myself. It's also very challenging, and I've experienced extreme highs and lows moving here, but I would do it all over again because of how much I've learned and how much of a higher human being I've become due to the things that I've been through. Why do I mentally feel 23? Well, I have a reason to justify it. So I've dated a lot of older guys, and because men mature slower than women and women mature fairly quickly, when I've gone out with older men, I've found that I resonate mentally with guys who are about like 23, 24, 25-ish, but I don't feel 25. I definitely feel like 23, 24, even though I'm 20. So it's like, oh, why are you going to talk about feeling lost in your 20s? But I've lived a lot of life, so I mentally feel like I'm kind of midway through my 20s, and I can speak on all this stuff because I've lived so many different lives and I've tried so many things, and I have a refreshing perspective, but I'm also like very open to hearing other people's perspectives and experiences. But this is just the life that I've lived so far, and I'd love to do something in the future where I reflect on my early 20s and then talk about, where I'm feeling there, because if I've come this far now, imagine how far I'm going to come in 10 years. Now we're going to get into part 2, which is the signs that you're on the right path in life. And the first sign would be that you're questioning everything. You're questioning your purpose, your direction, your job, your relationships. A problem that I found with Gen X and boomers is that they didn't question the system they were put in, but I think it's because they were essentially like the trial run for the 40-hour work week. And, after graduating from college, they'd buy houses, have children, and then sign their life away to work a job for 40 hours a week until the day that they died. I think that's crazy how they went through it and didn't think, maybe I want to change my career. Maybe I want to do something different and pivot away from this. Like, I'm not stuck to doing what I studied in college, essentially. But they went with it, and I'm not going to sit here and bash like their decisions. But what I am going to sit here and bash is the fact that they project onto us in a very insecure manner about going after what we actually want to go after in life. And it's so unhealthy and gross. You guys, I've experienced this firsthand. So when I worked back in Torrance at the same company that I'm at now, serving steaks, at a table, this couple who's a lot older, definitely late 70s. And, older couples typically ask, or just older people generally are like, oh, so what are you doing in school? Like, you look young, or, are you just working, whatever. And they asked, specifically the gentleman asked, what are you studying in school? And I looked at him and I said, art history. Like, I published my first paper. He cuts me off and goes, oh, so no wonder you still work here. And I wanted to drop the plate on his foot. I was frustrated, but in the moment, because I was kind of insecure about studying humanities, and to have someone older perpetuate that insecurity, I felt awful. And I thought about that comment for at least 6 months. Like, it sat in the back of my head. I think it's gross that, there's this stigma with studying humanities and just the way that boomers act towards us. And they're projecting, well, I studied business, I studied finance, and I have this great career, and it was predictable, or I became a lawyer, I became a doctor. There was a set path and clear things that I was supposed to do with this career, and I was bound to make money. But they're also, I think the reason they become bitter towards young people studying what they want to study, or studying humanities, or trying to be creative, is because they're suppressing the fact that that's something they wanted to do, but they knew that, it wasn't the most clear path, or it's looked as a career where you're not going to make much money, you're going to be quote unquote homeless, like whatever, just those stereotypes. They perpetuate it, and then they make us feel bad for doing what we want to do because they never did it. And it's just so gross, and I hate it. And I wish that the older generation would have a little bit more of an open mind when it comes to talking to us and letting us pursue the things that we want to pursue without having haters like always ranting in our ear and stuff. Granted, they were kind of conditioned to be okay with their circumstances because they were forced to be robots and do the 40-hour work week and have the white picket fence life, and, just to have babies and whatever. Like, it's just, I get it, but it's also like, I wish there was a little bit more patience and open-mindedness. I will say my grandma is like this. I'll call her and she'll go, oh, how are you doing? And then I just go pop off on a rant just about like the economy and like whatever. But then I'm like, oh, I'm still happy because I'm pursuing my dreams, and I know that ultimately I'm going to get to where I want to be one day. And she's just always had an open mind. And then when I am frustrated with something, she will always approach it with kindness and tell me like, I know you want to pursue this, but always kind of have your backup, like keep working at the restaurant. And then when you're making like double what you're working at the restaurant, then like consistently, then you're cool to like quit the restaurant job and like move forward with your life. But always just kind of have a little bit of a net. But she still lets me have that mindset where I'm a little delulu, but living my best life. Okay, now on to the second point, but you're outgrowing some friendships. Now, if you're becoming a better person, you're evolving, you're changing, you're growing up, ultimately there are going to be some people who don't grow up with you, and you're going to recognize that they're staying stagnant, and you want to surround yourself with people who are becoming higher human beings, essentially. So I had a friend back home who I loved hanging out with. Like, she was always so cool and like inspirational to talk to, even though we were in totally different industries. Like, she was trying to pursue real estate and music, and then I'm trying to do art research modeling, like totally different. But when I hung out with her, it was just this really good energy of, let's plan out what we're going to do and make this like quarterly plan and whatnot, and we're going to act on it, and let's write our things. And like, she would be writing music and then I'd be planning my art stuff, and it was just good. Like, I love hanging out with her. She was great. But then we slowly kind of distanced from each other just because she got into some relationship, and I don't know, just like ran out of money and stuff. And I just had a really hard time relating to her just because I was going up and then she was going down. And I can't associate myself with people going down, because then I'm going to go down. So, I've kind of outgrown friendships like that and hung out. And now I hang out with people who are becoming who I want to be, or are who I want to be, and I want mentors to look up to. It doesn't have to end in a hateful manner, just like, you're not serving any purpose in my life, so I don't want you to be a part of it. this might be controversial, but I don't see any issue in unfollowing people, deleting contacts, and just kind of falling out of contact, with people that you might have been really tight with just because you've outgrown it. It's not that serious. It's not, I don't like this person because I unfollowed them. It's just, I don't align with them anymore, and that's okay. I've gotten a lot of hate for that in my family so far, and it's just like, I love you guys, but if I haven't talked to you in over 2 years, getting to be 5 years, if you really want to reach out to me, you will reach out to me. You'll call my dad and be like, oh, like, I want to reach out to Lily. I want to put in some effort. But when I've been disrespected and put on the back burner and, just like gone through things, you need to make initiative to make me want to like you again. So that's why I'm just such a firm believer in it's okay to step back from people. And if you guys are meant to reconnect, you will, but it shouldn't have to be forced. Like connections and loved ones, family members, friends, it's all a two-way street. You can't always be giving and never receiving. That's when it doesn't work out. Now, the third sign that you're on the right path in life is that you don't recognize previous versions of yourself. You don't even recognize the person you were a year ago or perhaps even just 6 months ago. In other words, you've evolved and are continuing to transform. Embrace the metamorphosis. Now, I love this quote just because I genuinely don't recognize myself from 2 years ago. I read my diary entries and I'm flabbergasted at some of the things that I've done. And I don't know, just kind of surprised, like, wow, like that's how I acted 2 years ago. And I don't know, I think when you're young, you just think that, oh, like I'm so great now. Like, what is there left for me to evolve? But that's not a healthy way to think. Like, you think you're so great and like egotistical in a way, like, oh, like how can I go up from this? But as I've gotten older and listened to people with more life experience, there's always room to grow. Even if you're 70 years old and you've had this great career and all these great friendships and you've built this family, you can still become an even higher version of yourself, no matter how old you get. And that's kind of the beauty of life and evolving as a human being, which I think is so cool. But don't look at your younger self with regret necessarily, but more so lessons learned moving forward, because you're not going to learn your lesson and get it through your thick skull. Like, you got to go through your canon event to get it in your head and to not do it. A lot of friends back in my hometown who got into toxic relationships, and I just told them like, hey, I don't think this guy is good for you. You're not really acting like yourself anymore, or like you're letting your whole world revolve around boys. And they just wouldn't listen. They're like, no, like I really love him, whatever. And then they'd go through a breakup and something tragic would happen. Then they'd come crawling back. And I'm like, I was right. But people don't learn until they want to learn, and they'll soak it in when they decide that they're ready. You got to let the canon events happen sometimes. I know it hurts, but that's how most people learn. So the fourth sign is that you feel challenged. Now, I am a big advocate for this, because if you don't feel challenged, you're never going to grow. You're never going to evolve. You're never going to become more, because you're always stuck in the same place. Feeling challenged isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's that if you're given an opportunity, you're cut out for it. Don't believe that you're not deserving of it. When I was invited to do an internship on the East Coast in 2022, it was with a top 10 university. And I was going to community college at the time that was hella freaking cheap. And I just didn't think I deserved it for the longest time. And I felt so dumb being in that room with people who were so smart. Guys, I genuinely felt like the dumbest person in there. Like, we'd be having conversations, and I was so confused as to why I was allowed to be part of it, because I almost felt like there's no way I'm here that I actually got into this without like finessing it in some manner. But I didn't. Like, I went through the full application. They chose me over other people. I was given the opportunity, but you're going to be given opportunities before you're ready and before you think you're ready, but you're actually ready to do it. And even if you have to work a little bit harder, it's the universe telling you that this is meant for you. And there's a reason why I presented this challenge. Just continuing to move forward is what counts, and just going through the motions, even if it's not graceful, like, you're going to be embarrassed trying and trying and trying over again. but one day it's going to stick and it's going to be beautiful, and that's going to stick even more, and they're going to make a career out of it, and life is just going to be so exciting. Like, wow, I set out to do this. It was rough, but I did it, and I'm proud of myself. Sign 5 would be that you see the value of slowness. You're not as impulsive. You're learning to respond, not react. You take your time to make your decisions carefully. You're more mindful of what you want, so you want to make sure that what you do aligns with those goals. Just because you get a free dessert at a restaurant doesn't mean you should take it or eat it right then and there. Take it home and enjoy it another day. Or you might not be so quick to react to things anymore. If someone's getting angry and screaming at you, you just go, let them have their moment, and then let's talk this out like adults. Or you're the one who's being mature and thinking a little bit more about how you present yourself and making decisions carefully, thinking before you speak. It's just a part of growing up, and it's a sign that you're becoming the best version of yourself, just because you see the value in taking time to just be careful and to be a little bit slower and to listen to your elders. Like, what they're saying is not cap, it's the truth, and they've lived so much life and they're passing on very valuable knowledge, but you just have to have the patience to listen and to know that it's not your time just yet. Your 20s are here to experiment, but to also listen to figures that are above you and who've lived a little bit more life, just because they have something to say, and you're also learning things as you go along. Another sign you're on the right path is that you're learning to enjoy the process. Essentially, it's about the journey, not the destination. I learned this when I was traveling, especially just because I think one of the longest flights I've been on in the US at least was going from the West Coast to the far end of the East Coast. And when I travel, yes, I'm excited to get to where I want to be, but I'm also learning to enjoy the mundane parts of life, like getting on the plane, boarding the plane, eating, drinking, keeping yourself occupied while you get there, or maybe even upgrading my seat to something a little more comfy, just because you shouldn't always look forward to the future as like, that's when I'll be happy. Enjoy to be happy in the moment that you're in and to make full use of it. And just like enjoying the process in general, you know, the journey can be just as fun as the destination. And it's just interesting to, I don't know, kind of get together and like enjoy the journey of being a young person in your 20s with all your friends and just embracing like, wow, in 10 years, we're not going to be doing this. Most of us are going to be raising children, or we're going to be chasing after our careers. So let's enjoy this now and just live it up to the fullest, because we don't know what's going to happen next. When you take things one step at a time, when things don't go according to plan, you know to not freak out, because you're trusting the process of your life and the divine timing of everything. And that will ultimately give you more peace when things don't go your way. You're like, you know, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to reroute. And I know that this is happening for my own good. The last sign you're on the right path is that you feel inner peace despite everything being so chaotic. I feel more overstimulated living my day-to-day life than I do working in a restaurant where people are dropping plates, yelling for food runners, your tables always need something, the cooks are yelling, like there's just so much going on. But I feel a little crazier, you know, just going about my day-to-day, going to school, working 2 jobs, trying to pursue all my passions. But when you're honest with yourself and you know where you're at in life and you're trying to work on yourself, you don't feel this usual anxiety looking to the future with uncertainty. You feel certainty because you trust your gut, you trust yourself, and more importantly, you're going after what your intuition is telling you and you're following your heart. You guys, I am so happy that I decided to follow my heart and not to be okay with the ordinary and to let myself stay stagnant. The second I recognized that I was stagnant, I was like, I'm going to do a 180. I'm going to move to a different city and I'm going to pursue these things that I was afraid to pursue because I was on the path of stagnancy. When you trust your intuition and fully believe in what you're doing, you know that you're on the right path, even though you don't see an exact outline of it quite yet. And that is pretty much a wrap on the signs that you are on the right path in life. And that's okay to feel lost in your 20s. It's just a part of it. Your 20s are extreme highs, extreme lows, but you're not going to feel this chaos and life isn't going to be this wild when you get older. Like your 30s are an extension of your 20s, and that's why it's really important to set a good foundation for yourself in your 20s, have good habits, have a routine, so that when your 30s build upon it, you're not building upon bad habits and a really shaky foundation for this house you're trying to build for the rest of your life. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode. I'm always delighted to be recording these and to just dress up and to be in this fancy studio. I want to thank the Backdoor Studio for letting me record here, and I want to do so many things, record so many episodes, and they've been so helpful in aiding me to get there, trying to get the camera angle exactly how I want it, the backdrop and everything, making sure the audio is crystal clear, the video is positioned the way that, I'm so grateful. And I've had a lot of fun filming this podcast, and I'm looking forward to many, many episodes. So I'll see you guys next time.